Hello. Today I'm going to show you how to correctly complete the order of operations practice page. It is very, very important that you show all of your work when solving order of operations, and you should do that one step at a time. Every single line of your work should have only one part of the problem solved at a time. So for example, here, number 1, I see 14 minus 20 in parentheses minus 8. So we have the acronym GEMS that we will use to remind us of the order of operations. The G stands for grouping symbols. The E stands for exponents. The M stands for multiply and divide. So you would work those, multiply and divide, if there's both in the same problem, work from left to right. And then S stands for subtract and add. Again, that's two different things in one step. So if you have both, you would work from left to right. So I see here for number 1 that we do have a problem inside of grouping symbols, 14 minus 20. You have to remember all of your positive and negative rules when you are solving these. I know that 14 minus 20 is the same as 14 plus negative 20, so I'm going to actually add the opposite here. And a positive plus a negative, take the difference, use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. That would be negative 6. I will write the answer to that part of the problem directly underneath that part of the problem and recopy everything else exactly where it is, how it is. Now I have negative 6 minus 8. Again, I do not do subtraction with negatives. I change it to add the opposite. So I'll go ahead and change it right there in the problem. And now we've got negative 6 plus negative 8. A negative plus a negative is just add and get more negative. So that would be negative 14. When you are done with order of operations problems, you should pretty much have an upside down triangle. Every single part of the problem that needs to be solved, you have to show your work one step, one line at a time. The answer is going to be the bottom number. There's no need for an equal sign. I will just look at that bottom number. Here's another example. Number 2, we've got 14 minus the difference of 20 and 8. So we'll solve what's in grouping symbols first. So I will complete 20 minus 8. If it helps you, you can use the box highlighter tool to highlight the part of the problem that you're solving. So here 20 minus 8 is exactly what I'm solving first because it is in parentheses. I know that that is 12, so I'll write the answer to that part of the problem directly underneath that part, and I'll recopy everything else exactly where it is, how it is. So the 14 minus actually goes out in front of 12 because it was in front of that part of the problem. Now we've just got 14 minus 12 to solve, which is 2. There's my upside down triangle, a smaller one, but it is still there. Some of the longer problems, like you see here in numbers 3 and 4, you might not be able to fit completely here. If you can't fit them neatly here, then you need to add another page at the bottom of Kami by clicking on the plus sign and showing your work at the bottom. Here I'm going to try to fit my work into number 3. If it turns out to be too messy, I will just then have to erase it and put it at the bottom. So I see that there's grouping symbols, and inside of the brackets, there's parentheses. There's nothing to solve inside of that parentheses, though. It's just the parentheses that's keeping the negative with the number. If there was something to solve, the rule is when there's more than one set of grouping symbols, you work your way from the innermost grouping symbols out. Whenever there is more than one operation inside of parentheses or grouping symbols, you use the order of operations inside of the grouping symbols. So here I have 2 plus negative 10 inside of grouping symbols. So I will solve that part of the problem first. A positive plus a negative, take the difference. Remember that means subtract, and use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. 10 is bigger than 2, so I will use the negative. I'm going to keep that in parentheses just because it is a negative number. I'll write the answer to that part of the problem directly underneath that part, and we'll recopy everything else where it is, how it is. So the negative 3 times is in front of the answer, and minus 2 squared comes at the end of that. So now I've got multiplication, subtraction, and exponents. Based on GEMS, multiplication, subtraction, exponents. Exponents comes first. So you can go off to the side if you need to. 2 squared is the same thing as 1 times the base, which is 2, as many times as the exponent, which is also 2, says. There's two groups of 2, so I'll have 1 times 2 times 2. That is the same thing as 1 times 2 is 2, times another 2 is 4. So 2 squared is 4. I'll put the answer directly underneath that part of the problem and recopy everything else where it is, how it is. So that's -3 times -8 minus 4. At this point, I've got multiplication and subtraction. So I know that multiplication comes before subtraction. So I'm going to solve -3 times -8. Remember your rules for multiplying positives and negatives. He is negative times negative. He got to sleep in, so he is not sad about that. He is happy about that. A negative times a negative is a positive. -3 times -8 would be positive 24. Bring down the -4, and then we just have one thing left to solve. 24 minus 4 is 20. Every single one of these problems should have an upside down triangle shape if you complete the work the way that you are supposed to. All work must be shown before you submit, and if you do not show any work, you do not get any credit. There is absolutely no need to use a calculator for these problems, and you should not. So please make sure that you reach out if you have questions. Otherwise, follow the directions given here and you will not have a problem.